Hello, everybody. Welcome back to A Slightly Twisted Female. I'm your host, Brittany Rue. I am so excited to have five amazing women from our community. Welcome to the Gender Critical Lesbian live stream, where we have pulled together five of our amazing lesbian sisters from the community to discuss different issues related to being a gender critical lesbian woman in a post gender world. So I really look forward to introduce. We have Indi, we have Sasha Graham. If you guys remember from my gyno fascist stream, if you haven't seen it, check that out. I'll put the link at the bottom. We have Rana, Radfem Rana, who is wonderful. We've got Julie and Kelly. So everybody, welcome them. And so we're going to start by going around, and I'm going to have each of these ladies introduce themselves and tell a little bit about what piqued them, what they want other lesbian women to know who are sort of just getting started on this journey. And then we're going to talk about a few other topics. And then I want the community to have an opportunity to ask some questions that they would like, the ladies to respond to. And then we'll have sort of an open round table where all the ladies can kind of talk about, we'll just continue to build on what we've already started. So, all right, Indi, why don't you go first? Why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what piqued you and what you would like other lesbian women to know about being gender critical?
Hi, I'm Indi. I'm 21 years old, and what piqued me was, I was always a trans ally. Honestly, I was a true scum, as they called it, a trans activist. And then I was one of those people who would always say, no, this is a TERF talking point. Shut up, it's a TERF, blah, blah, blah. And then I realized one day, I have no goddamn clue what I'm talking about. So I went out of my way to actually look into what these big bad TERFs are saying, and I realized I agreed with everything that they were saying. Like, oh, not everything, but most things were completely rational, logical forms of thought. And I figured, whoever's telling us not to listen to these people must be extremely misogynistic. And I I looked into J.K. Rowling after that. I was like, okay, if TERFs aren't evil, then what is J.K. Rowling? I looked into her post, I looked into what she said, and she said nothing wrong. So I figure if this group of people is so content with lying and with spreading misinformation, this isn't who I want to be aligned with. And as I continue research, I just noticed so many more lies, so many just deceitful, deceitful things. And so I'm completely past that. And as for what young women and young lesbians should know, I want them to know that their voices are extremely important especially in these times. And if you stay silent, you're only helping other people with furthering this lie. Because if you're not saying anything, if you're not pushing back, they're going to assume that you agree with them. And it's not always safe to speak up, I know that. But when it is safe to do so, you please do it. And if it's not safe in your area to do so, go online. Do it anonymously. Do anything you can to make sure that people know that not everyone believes this lie. That's all I want to say.
Thank you. I love that. And that's so true. Just practice speaking. And even if you can't show your face, stickering is a way to speak without having your face, and just start taking little steps and I think like Indi's saying, one thing that we probably are underestimating is how many people actually do agree that this is all BS. It's just other people feel like they can't say anything. Sasha, go ahead.
I'm Sasha S. Graham. I'm 28 years tired, and what piqued me initially was I come from a very activist background, related to Black Panthers, all these different, a lot of my, I don't want to say ancestors because it wasn't that far back, but a lot of my relatives were involved in liberation movements, racial liberation movements, women's liberation movements, and all these different things. So naturally, I adopted that also. I was involved in a lot of things related to gender ideology, specifically harm reduction, because I've been involved in a lot of vulnerable groups work, mutual aid, and things of that nature. And so I spent a lot of my early adulthood, like 18, 19, 21, 22, paying bills for grown-ass men, making sure they were sponsored, doing eviction preventions because they wanted surgeries and they couldn't get jobs and they were doing all of these different things. And a lot of the times when I wasn't able to, I was forced and gaslit and manipulated into doing so anyway, because it's framed as if they're this vulnerable class who everyone is out to get them, everyone's out to attack them, and so we have to do everything possible to make sure that their lives are easier, when that isn't the case. I was initially groomed at the age of 16 by a grown man dressed as a woman who would send me photos of himself in lingerie and force me to, like, guilt me, telling me how he was suicidal and how he needed affirmation, all these different things. And I was never able to talk about it. That was one thing that always stuck with me. That I was never able to talk about it within these groups that were supposed to be, we were supposed to have solidarity, and they would say, like, trans rights were no threat to women's rights, but that was never the case. And so as time progressed, my curiosity grew because the rhetoric I've seen from gender ideologues was increasingly more misogynistic. It was increasingly more aggressive. And I was like, well, wait a minute. Every time they wanted to shut a woman down, they just called her a turf. It doesn't matter if she was right, if she was unlikable enough or she wasn't, towing the line enough, or that what they thought that she should be doing, they would silence her. And so my peaking was more gradual because it was a disillusionment. And yeah, it was a collection of different things. Being melted in a lesbian club and then being told not to talk about it because everyone's here to have fun and they'll be targeted because they're trans. Working with activist group chock full of trans identified males, who people would come to me and tell me, hey, that person sexually assaulted me. Hey, that person sexually assaulted me. Literally all the people in my circle I was doing activist work with, always coming up in sexual assault accusations. And it just broke me mentally. I would say to any young lesbian that is out there, pursue that curiosity. Don't let them shout you down. Don't let them close you out from being able to find information. Do your research. Don't let them manipulate you, because they will. If you look at the history of gender ideology and the things they advocate for, if they're not a threat to women's rights and women's liberation, why are you burning down women's shelters? Why are you getting women's shelters shut down? Why are you closing the lesbian clubs? Why are you referring to lesbians as non-men? So it's not. Don't believe the lies. Pursue your curiosity and do your own research. Don't listen to what they tell you.
Powerful. I love hearing you speak, Sasha. You're really powerful and relatable. Thank you. Rana, up next. Rana.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Loud and
Okay.
clear.
I'm Rana. I'm 24 years old. I identified as trans non-binary for a few years when I was around 16 to 18. Eventually desisted, thankfully without doing any irreparable harm to my body, besides like years of binding. And I basically peaked very slowly. I was kind of sucked into like the LGBTQ queer stuff around age 14, when I started high school, and I got more on the internet. And then I was in my school's GSA. I volunteered with Glisten. I went to the True Colors conference multiple times. I was very involved with that sort of thing. But I kind of went from like really gendy, what they call them mogai or too cutes, to like true scum, or what we call the true trans, and to eventually like turfing out in college. And so basically, what I want to say is that just don't let them gaslight you, and listen to your instincts, because they're going to try to groom you out of your instincts and tell you that you're not being nice, that you're doing this or that. But listen to that voice deep down, because always in the back of my head, I had like a little voice telling me that something was like a little off about it, or that like transgenderism wasn't quite the same as being gay or lesbian. Like I always had this little nagging feeling at the back of my mind that something was wrong, but I just pushed it down and I ignored it and I let people groom me out of it. And it took me a long time to like find that voice again. I remember the first time I ever said trans women were men out loud. I was alone in my dorm, in my bathroom, and I whispered it in front of my mirror. And that's how scared I was. So like don't let them groom you that far. Say it, say it wherever you can safely, and yeah, don't let them gaslight you, and listen to that little voice in the back of your head. That's your woman's instinct, and it's important.
Thank
That's
you,
all.
Rana. I love that. I love that, just saying it to yourself, because it does. It's like, and we know how powerful mantras are, right? And how much that can really, change our courage and change, help us hone our voice. So I love that. That's some really great advice. Thank you, Rana. Julie, you're next.
And I'm actually a later in life transitioner and detransitioner, I guess, quote unquote. I was peaked because, well, I mean, I've always been tomboy, butch woman, and I've never had any questions about my so-called gender at all. I had even met, a couple of trans-identified people through my 20s, and actually even a boy, I knew him, and he transitioned very young, like 13, 14, 15. I was really up close with that, but because he was a male, I didn't even, I had no idea what was going on with him. But I whenever I was 29, I got into a relationship with a trans rights activist, and I had no idea about this. I was just kind of going through my life as a butch woman. I never questioned it, but um, as I was dating her, and then I had run into other people that were identifying as non-binary. So, and this woman that I dated, she's a professor, and she seemed to know a lot about gender and whatnot. And I was very confused, but I asked her, what is that? What is non-binary? And she explained it to me, and then it, made me more curious. There was a bunch of transgender stuff around the house, and I related so much to what these trans identified people were saying was their childhood and their life, because as a non-conforming person, I have experienced that as well, a lot of that as well. So um it was probably, I don't know, 2 or 3 months later, I came to the conclusion that I was non-binary. So because I, didn't feel like what I was supposed to quote unquote feel like as a woman. So so I came out to her as non-binary. She quickly found me some gender affirming therapy, and um, of course, I go there, and the therapist is a butch woman too. So I'm very comfortable. I'm very comfortable with her, and I'm explaining these things to her, and I told her I think I'm non-binary, and she said, okay. And like, it was very quick, like, well, we'll get you whatever you need. What do you want to do? And I've always had a discomfort with my chest. So of course the idea of not having boobs really excited me. So I was like, okay, let's go ahead. And so I was pretty fast tracked to that, I think, because I was older too. I mean, I know that they fast track children as well, but because I was a full grown adult, they didn't question me at all. um so I think it was like it was the first therapy session I went in, and she referred me to a gender affirming doctor, where right away, first appointment, I was sent there, and I got on testosterone. It was probably, I don't know, it was like 2 weeks after my first therapy appointment, and I hadn't gone back to her yet. Um, but I got on testosterone in that same time. I told them that I was also feeling a little depressed. My relationship wasn't going so great. I've always had a issue with like my weight, seeing my weight as just much greater issue than what it has been. And so I right away got on testosterone and also on antidepressants that same appointment. And yeah, so I was there, I was living as non-binary, I was happy with all these results. So I thought, well, we split up, and I had gotten in contact with an old girlfriend of mine who I wasn't aware, but she was a TERF. And so whenever we talked on the phone, I was like, I told her, well, I'm non-binary now, and you'll need to use they, them, and I'm no longer Julie, I'm Julian. And she was like, whoa. And we hadn't talked in like 2, 3, 4 years, maybe. She was like, whoa, no. She's like, this can't happen. This cannot happen. You can't be sucked up into this. And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. You can't tell me who I am. You're just a TERF. And that's, you can't tell me who I am. So we talked about it several times, and I, even tried to cut off the friendship because I didn't want to believe it. And then she told me, like, read all these things by WDI, and I was like, no, thanks. But then I got online and I was doing my own stuff, and I came across Buck and Blair. So I, really started listening to them. And after some time, I was like, okay, yeah, this is not me. Those people are not the same as me. So, and my ex consistently was in my ear, like, I know that you think this, but whenever you go out into the world, I promise you, nobody else is believing it. They think you're crazy. Everyone thinks you're crazy. And I was like, no, I don't want to be like them. They are crazy. So, I shortly after that, I think really what piqued me is whenever I first heard of transbian, I was like, oh, hell no. Males cannot be lesbians, no matter what. Males cannot be lesbians. So although, like, while I was identifying as transgender, I, use the whole trans women are women and all that crap. But whenever I heard transbian, and I started to get on the dating sites because I was single again, and I saw all of them, I was like, oh no, this is it. So yeah, after that, I was like, nope, I'm full blown trans exclusionary. No thanks. And then I came across Brittany's platform, and I was like, oh wow, yeah, we're not alone. And my ex, we still have some disagreements. She's not so proud of the term TERF. I am fine with it, even though I don't really consider myself a radical feminist. But so yeah, and what I would like to say is specifically towards non-conforming lesbians or butch girls or women is, no matter how short your hair is, no matter what clothes you're most comfortable in, no matter what, nobody can ever take your womanhood. No other female is more or less woman than you are just because you have short hair and you're more comfortable in dressing in the men's style of clothing. So yeah, that's just specifically towards the young non-conforming women. My heart goes out to them because I know how confusing all of this is.
Thank you so much, Julie.
You're cutting out, Brittany. I can't hear you. Maybe it's me.
Oh, it's bad.
It's gotten a lot worse.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
No, you're fine, Julie. Brittany is just static.
Okay, great. I can't hear anything she's saying.
Is it still static?
Yeah, it's still really bad.
Sorry, it's because I had my wrong mic plugged in. I'm an idiot. I had my old mic. Sorry, guys. Mic's super guys. My bad. Well, while I fix that, let's go to Kelly. Oh, how did you guys switch sides? That's okay. All right, Kelly, go ahead. Thank you so much, Julie. I'll fix my mic in the meantime.
Hi, I'm Kelly. I'm 46. I actually got piqued by all this. I just happened to meet someone out here in San Diego who, within the last 9 months, who considers herself a TERF. So I started just listening to some of what she was saying and watching some of her content. And I wasn't on board with most of it. All of my life, pretty much, I've been a liberal thinking person. I didn't label myself, but I noticed that all of my thoughts seemed to align with liberal people. So, okay, I was liberal. And then within the last 9 months, I just started like looking a little deeper, because I always just figure, let people do what they want if they're not hurting anyone. And it was just within the last 2 months, that I came across like the videos where the guys are pretending to have their period. And like, for me, like I've struggled with that since I was 14, like medically, like with like polyps and fibroids, and as recently as 2 years ago, endometrial ablation. And I just was like so insulted. Like, I've always had a fun life. I've always, hung out with my older brother and his friends, and I loved hanging out with guys, and I was very comfortable. But I was always aware, like, these guys are lucky. Like, they don't have to, worry about, having their period or anything. And then when I started seeing those videos, I kind of got insulted. And then, the videos where they rant about getting misgendered, and like, I've been misgendered, like many butch women get misgendered. Like, it's embarrassing, you move on. Like, no women runs around like saying like, tell me I'm a woman, tell me I'm a woman. I was like insulted. Like, this is what they think we do with our time. This is what like being a woman is. And I guess the most shocking thing, because I don't pay attention to politics. I really just like stay out of all of it. I just assumed a transgender person had to have a surgery, which to me, that's a big procedure. If they're going to do all that, like whatever, like I wasn't really concerned about it. But then when I found out like trans identifying, people can just say they feel a certain way, and now they're allowed in certain spaces, or like, it was just mind boggling to me. And then when I would go to talk to like, my circle of friends who's mostly liberal, like I was shocked that this is a liberal or conservative issue, and not a women who value what it means to be a woman versus women who obviously just don't. And I just think like, with those guys with the period videos, like we must have just made it look too easy, like we do, because we get it dropped in our lap at 13, 14, or even younger for some women. We just deal with it. We go on with our lives. We have wonderful lives. We have fun, but all the while, like you're planning around it, you're doing it. And I just feel like, God, we must have made it look so easy, because we weren't ranting and raving. We weren't making stupid videos. We weren't like, it was just ridiculous. So I guess now I start following other channels, and I'm not a TERF. I'm not anywhere near that. So there's, certain things out of every channel that I pick out, and most of it, like, I don't. But it was just very lonely in the liberal circles, being the only one. This just seems like common sense. And it's shocking to me that so many liberals think this way. I'm shocked. And, I guess my advice would be, so I'm 46. I've been out of the closet for over like almost 25 years. The first 10 years I was out of the closet was on the East Coast. I didn't even know, I never heard of the LGB, never even knew it was a thing until I moved out to San Diego. And so it wasn't important. I don't care if it exists or it doesn't. It's nice that it's there, but it does not like define anything. Like, you don't need an organization to back you up or help you out. And now they're just tacking more and more letters on. I don't know when the T got added or the Q. And I feel like non-binary, they're going to add like NB on there soon. Like, it's just going to get out of control. And like, I have no part of it. And as a lesbian, like, I've lived my life. I've been married, divorced. We lived out as lesbians. Like, you don't need outside affirmation. You don't need approval. Like, just don't worry about labels, just, who you are and live as you are. Like, I don't worry about what anyone thinks. That's it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Kelly. I love hearing from you guys. I want to keep doing this. I was like, if this is a success, I'm going to keep putting these together, and it's so worth it. I'm so tired of hearing myself. So I like hearing you guys. It's great. And it's so nice to be able to have a chance to just like touch base with some of the names that I see frequently. And I know that you guys have so much really important insight. So I love hearing this from you guys. So let's talk about the lesbian dating scene and how it's been impacted by this by gender ideology. For those who I'm not sure, who's partnered or who has recent experience with the dating scene. I know Julie, you talked about it a little bit, and Sasha, you talked about just like your experience with just trans identifying male in general, and the sort of emotional manipulation that they put on you. But what for those who have been dating recently, or are currently dating, how have you seen the lesbian dating scene sort of infiltrated or impacted by this ideology? And in what ways do you think it's affecting lesbian women, and what do you think needs to be done about it? Sasha, go ahead.
Before we get into that, I just want to say, writing off of what Kelly said, it's so funny that they always say that it doesn't hurt women's rights or whatever like that. But if that was the case, why do we see the pursuit of lesbians specifically by the quote unquote trans community? Why do we see gender ideologues always pursuing lesbians for this alleged transphobia? Meanwhile, they're also saying we're the most supportive of them. So are we the most supportive, or are we the most transphobic? And this lie, that's the biggest lie they tell. Oh, it doesn't affect you. It doesn't affect you, but women lose rights to exclusively female same-sex spaces. It doesn't affect us, but women are losing scholarships and athletic awards and recognition and all of these different things that were reserved exclusive. I don't care about whether a man is bigger or stronger. I don't care if a man has higher bone density. That's not the point. The point is that women are entitled to single-sex, female-only spaces on demand without apology. There's no reason for anyone to try to justify, oh, well, I identify as this, or I've been taking hormones. It doesn't matter. You are still male. You were born male. You will die a male.
Well said. Well said. Absolutely well said. And it's so important to just be straightforward. It's like, I feel like sometimes we over intellectualize everything and try to go like, well, try to disprove the gendered brains, and we try to go through the science and, well, Ray Blanchard. And it's like, no, this is just dumb, guy. It's just literally dumb. Like we don't really need to go that much deeper. It makes no sense. Think about it for 5 seconds. Have a nugget of intellectual integrity and admit to yourself that this is dumb and it makes no sense. So does anybody else have anything that they want to talk about in terms of the dating scene and what it's like? Because I feel like this is like a really big struggle. I think for the fact, so I was looking up some, I was doing some research, and I know that this is like, it's hard to say definitively, but I think lesbian as a sexuality is actually has like the smallest percentage. I think that in terms of for females, females are far more likely to be bisexual than they are to be fully lesbian. And for males, for some reason, they're actually more likely to either be fully heterosexual or fully homosexual rather than bisexual. So there's actually a larger percentage of fully homosexual males than there are fully homosexual females, which is why I think it's so critical that lesbian women have their own spaces so that they can connect with other lesbian women, so that they have a place to, come together, or whether that's on like offline, whether it's like a lesbian bar or a lesbian group or some other kind of social, like, organization, or lesbian dating apps. And we've seen how heavily infiltrated they've been, to the point it's absurd. It's actually absurd. Some of these guys are not even pretending to try. Not that them trying makes a difference anyway, because, a lesbian is a female, and that's it, and that's all. But for those, does anybody want to speak about, your experiences, whether it's, online or in the real world? Has anyone ever been like catfished by a man?
Yeah, I mean, I was not catfished by a man, but I came out in 2023 as a lesbian after being bisexual for years. Clearly, it was the wrong time to do that, but I tried out the Her app, and I was honestly shocked at how many males I saw swiping on me. And of course, I was expecting to see some. This was before I peaked, so of course I was expecting to see some males, some trans women, whatever. But the sheer amount, they completely outnumbered females. It was shocking, is what it was. It reminds me of r/actual lesbians on Reddit. For some reason, that subreddit is completely filled with transbians over actual lesbians, which is the name of the subreddit, which is just disgusting in my opinion. But another thing that's disgusting is the fact that this is progressive conversion therapy. And I will continue to say this because what a lesbian is a homosexual female. That is what we have fought for years. That is what people before us have fought for years. It's to be accepted as a homosexual female. But when you start to say that if you're a homosexual female, you should also be attracted to males, you should also be attracted to male genitalia, it's conversion therapy. It's saying that your sexuality as it is not okay. And it's shaming women into believing that they need to accept males in their spaces, accept males in their dating pool in order to be a good person, which is disgusting. And as for what to do about this, I'm really not sure. I hope someone in the comments has something they can say, but the only things I can think of is to ignore them or report them, try speaking out, or like acting as men would, even though that's a bad example. But if a man were in this situation, if their spaces are being infiltrated by females when they don't need to be, they would say, this is ridiculous, this is disgusting, stop it, get out, we'll stop giving you our money, we'll stop giving you our service. So I think if we start acting with our attention, start acting with our wallets, then some change will have to be made.
Well said. Tell me, how's my mic right now? Really?
It's good.
Okay, is that better? All right,
We
good.
can hear you.
I
Yes.
agree, Indi, actually. I wanted to tag on to that because I used to host lesbian socials, and it's sad that we have to go back to an era where the mob controlled like gay clubs and lesbian clubs because the TQ, which queer is a slur, by the way. It's not an identity, it's a politicized label. And I actually have a warehouse where we gather and we do like, meetings or like speed dating and things of that nature in secret because we have to, because they have essentially consumed everything that lesbians have created. There are 3 lesbian clubs remaining in the US, like in the whole United States. 3 lesbian clubs exist that remain still. And anyone who is interested, I'm actually having this Friday with my homegirl, V. We are doing a lesbian call. We're reaching out to all the lesbians. Please come with your questions. If you want an event hosted in your area, if you need help finding other lesbians, connecting, hit me up for that, because we have to start organizing on behalf of ourselves. That's what they fear the most, and that's why they seek lesbian suppression almost exclusively.
Why is it? Oh, sorry. I love that. And also make sure you get all those links to me, Sasha, and all of you guys at the end. Make sure that you message me with all of your links, and I'll make sure all that stuff's in the bio. And always feel free to use me as a message board. If anybody ever has any events coming up, different things that they want to publicize, email me at a slightlytwistedfemale@gmail.com. And, you guys are more than welcome to leverage my community tab as a way to get that out there. And so I just wanted to bring this up really, really quick. I wanted to bring up, so for those who don't know who Saul Grover is, I just wanted to show this. So Saul Grover is a woman who started a lesbian dating app in response to everything that's been going on with her. I'm permabanned for her for calling out troons. I couldn't help it. It was like when I was dating. And it was just like, to me, it was so absurd. I was like, you sure you're a female there, sir? Like, the fuck? So, and it's so insane that lesbian women, bisexual women, like women for women, can't have their own spaces. So I want to make people aware of the project that Saul Grover is starting. She's the Australian founder of an independent female-only social media networking platform and an app called Giggle. Giggle was created by Saul as a platform centered around women connecting with and supporting other women. The purpose was to provide an app that allowed women to safely connect, an important consideration when dealing with strangers. Giggle uses biometric technology to scan faces to ensure the app remains single sex. Saul Grover has been tremendously supportive of lesbian and bisexual women on her Giggle app over the years, and their need to have female-only spaces. Her new independent Giggle app will feature a dating platform for lesbian and bisexual women which will be a secure way for women around the world to chat and meet and even date. This is a landmark case that is about to go to the federal court. If Saul Grover wins the case, it will be a big win for sex-based rights for all LGBT people across Australia and really, I mean, across the world. It'll probably set like a big precedent. So please consider donating to this important crowdfund to support Saul's case to fight for women and girls as well as LGBT people. To me, it's just so amazing that I think, yeah, so for those who want, I'll post the link if anybody wants to learn more about the app that she's putting together and what she's up to. But I think that's important for all gender critical lesbians to be aware of. And it's such a shame that it seems like the community that was supposed to support lesbian women is the community that almost now seems to be actively attacking, lesbian rights. And so that's why there's even the big push for get the L out. So what are your guys' thoughts just in terms of the whole LGBTQ in general? Like, do you guys support just getting the L out and just making, focusing primarily on just lesbians as a community? Or would you rather just see the LGB and just get the TQ out? What do you guys think in terms of, the future of the sort of like lesbian community?
Sorry, would I be able to? I wanted to answer about the dating question really quick.
Yeah, go ahead. Anything.
If possible. Sorry. So basically, like, there kind of is no lesbian dating scene anymore. Like, it's really fractured, and it's mostly like queer or bisexual women or women who identify as like she, they, or non-binary. And very few women actually call themselves lesbian, or oftentimes they do, but then they still date trans-identified males. And then there's another thing I've noticed in the lesbian community where they identify as trans men, identify as gay trans men, and then still date each other. And they just kind of LARP as men together. And I have a lot of like friends who did that, and it was part of what piqued me was like observing them and realizing that they still act just like women and like just like a lesbian couple, but they just like role play as men like 24/7.
Yeah, socialization doesn't go away when you identify out of it.
Yeah.
Sorry to derail the conversation, but I just wanted
No,
to
you're
include
good.
that before we got that.
You're right on topic, and I'm happy to see you guys just, I'm just asking questions to kind of like get the ball rolling, but anything that, you guys have that you want to share, this is your space to do that.
It's two self-hating lesbians that decided to, it's like a match made in hell almost. But I did want to get into that. Unfortunately, we as lesbians are not large enough. We don't have enough support to do this on our own. I support Get the L Out eventually, but we will have to just do LGB for now because the loud minority, I don't know what I can say on here because I don't want to get banned from YouTube. But the I'll call them the T demographic. The T demographic has drummed up support by feigning oppression, by feigning genocide, which it does not exist. That's not a real thing. And by gaslighting the general public into saying, well, listen, you need to treat us this particular way. And if you don't, you're an awful transphobic bigot. So we have to use the resources and demographics available to us that are willing to ally with us to defeat this ideology because it's toxic, right? And if we look at the rhetoric of gender ideologues, it's all conversion therapy rhetoric, it's all rape culture. And the ultimate statement that they're making is that woman is a political identity. So subsequently, anything in relation to women is also a political identity, including lesbianism, which is not the case, right? Nobody becomes a woman or becomes a lesbian because they just don't want to be a man, or because they like pretty pink dresses, or because they go shopping, or any of those other grotesque stereotypes about how women exist.
Yep, entirely true. And I think that the solution for that is to just completely abolish gender. People say all the time that gender roles are the problem, but the problem is gender itself. no one is a woman, no one is a man. It's just a bunch of sexist stereotypes that people have compiled and decided that that's what this is. You know how every girl has gone through a I'm not like other girls phase? There's a reason for that. It's because we are not like the quote unquote other girls. It's not a thing, it doesn't exist. So of course everyone's going to agree with that. It's the same exact thing happening again with all of these trans identifying females saying that they're trans men now because they don't agree with what the other girls are. No one does. It's not a thing. We are born either male or we are born female, and that is it. You can identify as whatever you want. You can dress however you want. Your personality can be whatever you want. But the thing is, there's only male, female. Sometimes people are intersex, but that's such a small minority of people. So that, you know, that's dealt with as it happens. But that's point blank. That's the truth.
And a lot of the trans identifying females, a lot of it is internalized misogyny as well. And I'm speaking from experience. That's a huge factor, I think, in females believing that they're not actually women.
Yep, 100%.
Totally. And like, oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I didn't. Okay, I was gonna say that's how it was with me too, and I forgot to mention that I also have autism, which is a big factor here. I was diagnosed at age 18, so that was basically after I desisted, I believe, like briefly after I desisted, and so like I didn't when I identified as non-binary, it was because I didn't know I was autistic, and it didn't relate to other girls and women or the social conventions associated with womanhood. And some lovely people on the internet groomed me into thinking that that meant I wasn't really a woman, which I think is a problem for a lot of these people. I know so many. There's the autism thing is huge. OCD and like body dysmorphia are huge factors, and also trauma. I know so many women and girls with sexual trauma who identify as trans. Like
Yes.
personally in my personal life, who I'm friends with.
Yeah.
And that was part of what piqued me. Like I have a friend whose father molested her as a child and did the same thing to her little sister and not to any of the brothers. And she admitted to me that she wants to be a boy because she feels like if she'd been a boy, it wouldn't have happened to her.
And it's crazy to me because like we don't give anorexics liposuction. We don't do that. But someone who goes in with a plethora of mental illness, they'll go and get hormones. It's so people always say that's not happening. And if it does happen, then it's not that bad. If it's not that, oh no, if it's not happening, it's not happening. And if it is happening, it's not happening that often. And if it is happening often, then it's not that bad. Those are the main three lies they tell, right? Because it's always bad. I walked into a clinic and left the same day with a prescription for testosterone. They can't say that, oh, okay, there are all these screening steps that you have to go through, and there's this and that and the other thing. It's not that it doesn't work like that at all. Anywhere in the US, at least.
Right.
I did want to actually, this is kind of off topic, but Sasha, I wanted to say something you said a while ago about how the lesbian community is small. I completely agree with that, but I also think that that's part of the reason why there are only 3 lesbian clubs. Now, I'm not saying that that's a good thing that there are only 3, but I think that women in general are just less likely to go out and party and have casual sex in general. So I think that's a big reason why there's so few lesbian clubs. And why the her or now him app is so infiltrated with men, because these businesses are just going where the money goes. Men are more likely statistically to pay money for dating apps, and they pay a lot. So if you're any business is going to want to have as many men as possible on that app. They don't actually care about women. They don't actually care about trans people. They care about money. And that's why I think seeing the Giggle app, that is just very commendable that Sal Grover is doing that, because that's a sign of someone who actually cares about women, someone who actually cares about making sure women have a safe space. So that's really just a good thing that she's doing.
I have to disagree. There was a huge, and I wasn't old enough to participate, but when I was coming up, there was a huge lesbian club culture. When I don't usually try to talk about this all the time because I hate injecting it and everything, but when I was involved in the sex trade as a lesbian escort, there were girl clubs where women would go by sex exclusively from, or not just sex, but companionship exclusively from lesbian women. So there is a demand for it. It does exist. I think what happened was, with the issue of COVID and the rise of gender ideology, a lot of these spaces were forced to convert to quote unquote queer spaces, or forever be branded as trans exclusionary, or they just weren't seeing enough business in the era of COVID because nobody was going out. But there was a huge healthy lesbian scene. There's a city in Massachusetts, I forget the name, where the population is majority lesbians.
P-Town.
There you go. There you go. And
Wait, what's it called? I've never heard of this.
Provincetown, P-Town.
Provincetown. What state did you say it was?
Massachusetts.
That's
it's in
cool.
Cape Cod.
Is it? Do you think? Is it like? Was it like a created community? I guess where like lesbian women are just drawn to that because they have a big lesbian community, and it became that way, or there's something in the water that we.
I could go on for literally days about this, but it's basically, there was like this huge lesbian exodus because the laws were friendlier, the housing was cheap, and they were able to build, like they literally built an entire community from scratch. And so like lesbians started flocking there because they felt, safer, and they could find more of their sisters, and it's a whole thing. But there is, even though we are a small portion of the population, we do have purchasing power, and we are often the same as gay men, dual income, no kids. For a long time, there are a lot of lesbian couples who, for a long time, don't have children, and so they have, because like there's here in Miami, every year there's a yacht party that's just full of lesbians that hasn't been infected by the TQ yet, and so there is a demand. It's just lesbians have been suppressed from being able to pursue our own, like building our own spaces and hosting our own events because of this rhetoric that's been normalized.
Yeah, that's and just to like throw in my own like 2 cents here too. Even after I split up from my husband, and I was like interested in dating women, and it's like, so I kind of really understand how much like it's a different experience being bisexual versus being opposite sex repulsed, because my biggest issue was I like had finally met one genuine lesbian who was like super hot and cool, and we like hung out for a while, and then she ghosted me, and I was super sad. She was this like model. God, she was so pretty. But like, and I just remember when I was even going on just like regular apps, and even if it was like women for women, it was all either dudes who were LARPing as women, or it was like you talk to the woman for a little bit and then you realize she's like, so figuring out it's a good time to tell you, I do have a hubby, and we were kind of looking, for like a unicorn, and so I kind of wanted to see what your thoughts were. I was like, no, I don't want your dude, bro. Like, and then like half the time the dude's like mad ugly and like corny, and I'm like, I'm all right, bro. Like it's just so eventually, my option was I could be like, all right, I'll just switch to like dating men, and they're so much more plentiful. Like you said, they're all over these apps. There's like billions of them, and I really like, and I think that experience made me realize why being opposite sex repulsed is really such a different experience than being bisexual, and why it is that we've got to fight for lesbian spaces and just women for women spaces, because it is so I really was like, you know what, let me try. I'm gonna like, I've been in a long relationship with a man, let me like be, try being with a woman, and that's what I was really interested in. And it was like, it was impossible. I had to give up. I was like, never mind. I tried. I feel so bad for these opposite sex repulsed lesbians because I don't know how they do it. It's just like there's no good spaces. Philadelphia, which has is considered one of the most LGBTQ plus friendly, big cities in America, shut down its last lesbian bar in 2020 during COVID. The only one that we had, and it's supposedly this big bastion for LGBTQ, but why is it the L always seems that it's like at the lowest? The L gets exploited the most, and yet seems to be the lowest on the priority list in terms of like what their actual needs for community are. And I just I think that's got to be so hard.
It is, and it sucks because I mean, I had a crazy era, but I never got to experience that healthy lesbian scene because by the time I grew up, everything was already closing. And then I had like I couldn't drink, so then I couldn't go to the other quote unquote gay bars or whatever. But I was not going into them queer bars. I can't tell you how many times I've been set up on dating apps by a lady with a husband. There was, there was the one guy. There was one that was a dude. It was a dude, and he was using pictures of his wife. Right?
Yes, they do that. You find out you've been talking to the dude the whole time. He's like, well, all right, so gotta be honest with you. I'm actually him. And I'm like, ew.
No, it was a troon, and he was using pictures of his wife, and he tried to model his appearance after her, and you can tell that it's a guy trying to be a girl. And so by the time I show up, right, we're in the park, and I turn around, and it's a guy looking at me. I'm like, the fuck is this guy looking at? And then I look at the picture, and I look at him, and I'm like, motherfucker, I know this ain't. I almost died. I almost fucking died right there. I was mad as shit. And I'm like, you can't do this. I reported him on the app and everything, never took him down, never let him stay up. And they do that. They will sit there and they will use photos of the women in their lives, model their appearance after her, and then trick lesbians into coming out and meeting them. And I was like, I left. I wasn't fucking with it.
What's the end goal there? Do they think you just wouldn't notice? What?
See, the thing is, these type of men are porn addicted and they're horny, so they think that since I'm already there, I might as well. And it's like, it doesn't work like that. You're a dude, you're a man, you're a guy, bro.
That, or they think they can coerce her into going along. Sorry.
Yeah, unfortunately, there are a lot of lesbian women who do go along with it. I've had a friend who, she, of course, she's calling herself queer, but she says to me that she's a lesbian, and she said she was starting to see somebody new, and I asked her to see the pictures, and it was a straight up dude. And but the dude, of course, had lesbian written all over his profile. And with these queer women, they go along with it. And I asked her, I'm like, I thought you were attracted to women. And she's like, well, he or she doesn't use her penis. She does it's all about me. It's only about me. I'm like, no, it's not about you, I promise. So yeah, it's just disgusting.
For me, with the dating apps, it's just about a huge waste of time. Like, the whole point of having it separated, a lot of us work a ton. We have a very little amount of time to like search, and then make arrangements to go out. Like, what a colossal waste of time to do all that and then find out it's a guy the whole time. Like, the very superficial level, the least of it is you wasted a whole lot of time. Like, it's just not fair.
Yeah. And what blows my mind is, I'm not on the dating apps any longer, but the ones that don't even clarify, some of them will put like trans woman, lesbian, but occasionally there would be ones that didn't even clarify, didn't even, obviously you can tell, but they didn't write it down at all that they're actually a male.
They don't, because you know what? Someone had made a comment, soul enrolls, they are addicted to turning us out. And there's a whole Reddit forum where they talk about like how they have rape fantasies, or how they want to make lesbians addicted to their phallus, or how they want to turn they like just really gross language revolving around the rapes of lesbians and converting us and turning us fetish for them. It's something that it's like conquest. It's like how straight men treat regular heterosexual women. The sex is a conquest. And now they've claimed, because they want to be that one special guy, that's able to turn a lesbian.
Yeah. And not to mention how many of these trans identified males, who are in their 40s, 50s, 60s, dating 20-year-old women who call themselves lesbians. They date so much younger, vulnerable. Yeah, just totally just taking advantage of the inexperience of life.
Dog, they be balding with the wig sitting halfway back on their head, talking about lesbian with a mustache right here and a 5 o'clock shadow. Lesbians hit me up. No, sir. I think the fuck not.
Bro, it's like they try to be as like horrifying and like monstrous as possible. I'm like, sir, like, is that part of the kink that you get off on the idea of being this like hideous monster that can somehow like infiltrate a woman in her body? Because it's like you nailed it if that's the goal.
Phantom of the Opera activities.
I can for sure say that at least some of them do. I was looking for an image, I can't find it, but there's this Twitter user, it went by the name Porn Sick Chloe, very fitting. He tweeted about how he gets off on the idea of forcing a woman to get with him, and the idea that because of the current state of society, she would have to go along with it, or else she's called transphobic. And he was fully laughing at it. So this goes to show that they know exactly what's happening. They see exactly what's happening, and they find it funny. They enjoy it. It's sickening.
Remember cervix piercer? Remember cervix piercer? Like, and they have all these crazy names.
Wait, yes, cervix piercer.
I'm not familiar.
Cervix piercer is a Twitter user who tweets the grossest things about, like, basically he has a fellatio fetish, and
I think I saw you were posting about him. I remember because you had put some stuff up about that. I remember that.
And then he tried to report me down, and I appealed it, and it came right back up because he has a fellatio fetish of forcing women to suck his penis. That's his fetish. Like, the force part is the forcing lesbian specifically is the part where he's like, he gets off on it. I saw a comment earlier by Rad Cake or something like that. I'm sorry, I missed your name. But how you start building your community is going to like spots where lesbians are at, and then connecting with, like, looking and connecting to women that you see are lesbians, getting a feel for them, seeing where they sit as far as geology lies, and then just host like a meeting every week. That's how I started. I started real small. You don't have to get the warehouse right away. You don't have to get a building to, just meet up at a coffee shop, meet up at a group or a hookah lounge or anywhere, and then just start talking. And then you tell them how to recruit other lesbians so that you can develop a space together outside of the influence of these sick creatures. I'm not even going to call them, I'm going to start calling them sick creatures.
Yeah, call them what they are. And it's like, yeah, and just responding to that, even like having a signal group, where you just have one kind of spot where every time you get a lesbian number, just be like, can I add you to my signal group? Because I have a signal group with other lesbians. So every time you meet another fellow lesbian, be like, listen, I have a little group, can I throw you on? And then just let it expand, and like, we're going to have to like really be intentional about creating female only communities, and sharing that and be like, hey, is it okay if we, I share whatever, add these extra women to the group and let that expand out? Because a lot of the little groups of communities, even TERF communities, it'll be women who met up at an event or had a protest, and then they get each other's numbers and they're like, okay, let's create, and then a signal group forms, it'll be some women who all happen to be from the same state, and then they create a space, and then it's like, it creates a network. And we have to be intentional about it because no one's going to do it for us, right? No one's coming to rescue us. So it's like, we're going to have to be really intentional about creating our own spaces, whether it's women only, lesbian women, bisexual women, whatever the case may be, whatever we organize ourselves around.
TERF spaces are a great place to start. Honestly, you meet a lot of great lesbians, and I just wanted to really quick say that, like, any lesbians located in New York City should contact me if you're looking to like build community. I know local like TERFs and stuff like that, and I'd love to get some stuff done or just hang out, have women or lesbian spaces.
I know a couple in New York City. But what I would do, though, I do recommend going in person to see who they are, because people lie online. People lie, and you want to have somebody that that you've met in person, that you're consistently meeting with and hanging out with.
Yeah, that's what I've been like starting to try to do.
Building community in person is so much more profitable, and it's so much more it has better longevity than something online, because people do lose interest in online communities fairly quickly if it doesn't translate to something that makes an impact in their real lives. So meeting them in person solidifies that, like that cohesion, that group cohesion.
Very true. And I think especially post-COVID, it's been a little bit more difficult for people to remember how important it is to meet up in person and how real things feel once you're in person. But Ellington was asking how we feel about Pride Month and Ariel Scarcella.
Oh, this Ariel month. Let me say. Oh, okay, you know what?
I mean, if we're gonna let's talk about Ariel then. I don't mind most of her opinions. Most of her opinions aren't that outlandish. We disagree on a few things, but the way she goes about sharing her opinions is just too abrasive. I personally have no problems with it. I'm completely fine with that. But the way that it comes off to other people just makes her difficult to listen to, and I know that kind of defeats it.
I think she has the most milquetoast opinions, and then only comes out with something controversial because she's a clout demon. She is a clout demon. She has no real values. She only does things for shock value and so that she can make money off the internet. She has
Agreed.
no real, like, there's nothing about her that's genuine. She's doing this for money, to shock people and to stay in their good graces, in their eyes, like in their line of sight. Please. Ariel came out as bisexual on the. I have to watch that. I couldn't even watch the full thing because it was pissing me off. It was pissing me off so bad. And the only reason why I wasn't able to get on that panel is because I couldn't get a flight to LA in time. I'm sorry. I can't stand her.
Hey, did they invited you to do the Jubilee?
I applied and everything, and they were like, "Oh, okay, come to LA or blah blah blah," or "This is where you're supposed to be. This is the address in LA you're supposed to be." But I couldn't make it in time because I had to work that day.
That would have been awesome. That would have been awesome.
All right, but I'm gonna apply for future ones. Because I plan on spending a month in LA just to do like some type of lesbian adjacent episode. I can't. That panel was horrible. There were no real radical lesbians who are invested in the safety of lesbians or the culture of, because there was, like, we used to have a huge culture. We don't have that anymore, and none of them were invested in it. So they were all just bending the knee to these fucking. I was done. I couldn't even make the full episode. I still haven't watched the full episode.
Yeah, I couldn't finish it either. It was so disappointing from both sides.
I'm sorry, I can't stand her. I would never, like, I talk all about like female solidarity and all this type of shit. No, not that one. That one can go. That one can leave.
Kelly or Julie, do you guys have any input on either Pride Month or your thoughts of some lesbian influencers such as Ariel Scarcella, who's sort of like a true trans?
No, nothing on that. But with the LGBT, like, I do think that it needs to get a revamp, or I'm not sure how a woman being attracted to another woman got lumped in with a man wanting to be a woman. I'm not sure how we're all like lumped into the same group. And even though it's not like an important group to me, I think like up and coming, young lesbians, like if the LGBT was just lesbian, gay, and bisexual, like that's like a safe space. That's at least about sexual orientation. And like it's the trans community just needs their own branch of that, whatever it is. They need their own dating spaces. Like, it's just common sense. Like, it can't be taken seriously when they're just lumping all these different things together that don't even go together. Like, it's not even on the same line. So yeah, I wouldn't take it seriously until they separate us from that.
That makes
And
sense.
it's a fetish.
Yeah.
It's a fucking fetish.
Yeah, going with what Kelly was saying, honestly, if I could choose who we're all lumped in with, I would be lumped in with same-sex attracted women. Not that I have anything against gay men. I mean, that's fine, but I feel like I have even less in common with any males than I do with any same-sex attracted women. So put me in with like the lesbians and bisexual women other than just same-sex attracted people together, altogether. But as far as Pride, I mean, the last Pride I went to, I think I was maybe 23. I'm 35 now. And I quit going way back before trans stuff even, existed in my world because of the sexual nature. It's just pure sex, like it's not even like love like they say. It's like love is love. No, it's not about that anymore. Maybe way back whenever gay people were still fighting for the rights, but I would, in my own opinion, I think that pride should be abolished, and I don't necessarily like seeing all the pride crap around my city either. I just wish that we could be treated like normal people. I mean, way back, yeah, sure, that was all fine, but I just don't think it's necessary now. I would do away with pride if it was up to me. And then I don't know what was the last one. Oh, Ariel Scarcella. I mean, she played. I don't listen. I unsubscribed. I don't really listen to her anymore. But she, back whenever I was listening to Buck and Blair and whatnot, she definitely played a role in my quote unquote detransitioning, to be honest. But no, I mean, especially after the Jubilee episode when she, admitted to dating men, but still is calling herself a lesbian. Yeah, I just can't get on board with her.
Because she's not, and she's promoting the sex trade. Someone down in the comments said that she was promoting a sex toy created by a porn sick man that was like, I guess, a blowjob toy. Like, what does that have to do with being a lesbian? And you're right, it is about sex. It's always about sex because there's always sex pests. I remember going to a club. One of my homegirls, she's a Colombian girl, she told me, why the fuck every time I'm going to the club, one of these males, these scroll creatures, are always hitting on lesbians and say, oh, I want to experience lesbian sex. You can't, sir. You're a man, bro. Why do you have this interest, this investment in what two women are doing together? Why can't you just go on and date? If you want to have an experience with another woman, why don't you find someone who's bisexual, right? And that can help, quote unquote, affirm you if you wanted that so bad. Why do you have to pursue and harass lesbians? I remember there was one time where I was standing at the bar and I was trying to get me a little non-alcoholic drink because I was feeling left out and I didn't want to, not be. And like I wanted to be social still. And this scroll creature pulls one of these numbers across my chest. The fuck was that? And I go talk to the person who organized the event. I said, hey, listen, this happened to me. And they were like, well, listen, everyone's just trying to have fun. This could blow up and be a big thing. And we don't want to inspire transphobia. And so instead of taking that person out of the environment who just assaulted me, they want to say, okay, well, just keep your mouth shut because we don't want to inspire transphobia. Man, get the fuck out of here. I couldn't leave fast enough.
Because all they care about is pushing the lie. All they care about is furthering the lie. They don't care about women's safety. They don't care about women's comfort. They care about the lie.
Well, and it's like, I just think by accepting the whole trans women are women argument inverts all reality. So it literally, like you said, it's like, it just kind of it is a way to decimate all boundaries at that point. It's like, oh, we all have to tiptoe and, well, they're this special thing that has, I mean, basically rights to do anything that they want. And there's no one is allowed to say no. And everybody's, it's like men, they found the perfect strategy to just be able to do what they want. And in terms of the cotton sealing and whatnot, it's always been, it's the same reason why Blair White, is trying to be gender critical. Because what is the best way to affirm yourself as an actual woman is to be literally the thing that literally only women are. Only women are TERFs. And it's like, if you were a TERF, then you'd be an actual woman. So now we have, people like Blair White who's trying to come up like ally himself with the whole TERF narrative, not because he really cares about our rights, not because he actually sees women as human beings, because it's like then he can separate himself out as being like, well, I'm so close to what women are actually like and what they actually think that I'm actually, gender critical myself. And it's the same exact reason why these dudes become so hyper fixated on penetrating through the boundaries, literally and figuratively, of lesbian women. Because what's more affirming than that?
That's absolutely it. It's like the ultimate conquest for them. And I don't believe that people like Ariel or Blair White have women's or anyone but themselves best interests in mind, because I think they're all grifters. I don't think that Ariel is genuine, or if she is being genuine, then she's not that intelligent.
It's not even that. It's just that she goes where the money is. That's why she has no values. Like, if you listen to her talking points, they're very simplistic. Anytime you ask her a question, she avoids a answer with depth. She doesn't do anything that could be potentially compromising to her audience of sex pests. And because that's what they
Yeah,
are.
she just
First of
sticks.
all,
She just says the same talking points over and over again, but they are very simplified and very like basic, and they tiptoe around the things that she doesn't want to lose like brownie points with her audience for. Sorry,
and that's
keep
really
going.
why I abandoned my, like, because I had a little true trans phase where I was supporting, like, well, no, well, maybe some people really are, but it doesn't work like that, because if you justify some of it, then you have to justify all of it. And when we take this to it's just a longer road to misogyny and sex and the removal of women's spaces. Like, you're just putting extra steps on the, or extra miles on the road to get there, but it's ultimately all the same destination.
See, Sasha, that's about where I am right now. I'm on the fence between whether I should figure out what true trans is fine and what's not. And I'm considering how my choice of validating some means that all of them get validated by proxy. But I think shoot. Sorry, I lost my point.
I'll
Well,
just go into it too. I also believed in the true trans for a long time, and that same X, that same turf X, I was like, no, listen to Blair, no, listen to Buck. They make sense. Look at them. They look like the opposite. Like, it's true. And no, she fought me on that too. And finally, I saw it. And yeah, none of it's true. I'm sorry, but no, they're all mentally ill, as I was, and it's not true. And the more that we, let them say that it is, the more we're gonna lose.
right, like, we cannot afford to compromise on this point, because it's always the women compromising and them getting what they want. We have to be firm with this. There is no such thing. Like, sex is immutable. Like, you can never change sex. You can get all the surgeries you want, but when that blood test come back, what it's gonna say, male or female?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And
Right.
for me, I, especially, first of all, I want to put this out there, and I'm saying this: Buck Angel is a groomer.
Amen. Absolutely.
I don't encourage
And
anyone to
Agreed.
on that unless you want the receipts released. Buck Angel is a groomer. Why the fuck are you doing anything to make yourself a household name and make yourself available to the public and available to children when you still engage in pornography? Buck Angel is a groomer.
Well,
and
anyone
gender
trying
isn't real.
No, and it's not real. And anyone trying to, and the thing with the true trans is that ultimately it just doesn't make sense. And when you investigate these so-called true trans people further, you realize that they're actually no different in any way whatsoever than any of the more like
Right.
ridiculous ones. It's like they just are more they understand now that the gender critical pushback is becoming a force to reckon with, and that the whole, far left queer theory sink is starting to, spring some leaks. And they realize, let me hop off now and find this new lane that has clearly been highly lucrative for people like Blair White. That whole like the sort of like true trans in crowd, the Buck Angel and the Blair White. And if you look at Buck Angel, it's like she doesn't know what she's fucking saying. She just parrots, these gender critical talking points, but she speaks out of both sides of her mouth. She says that she doesn't believe in compelled speech, but if you call her a she, her, or a woman, that you're hateful and it's because you're a phobe. And it's like, what are you talking about? All this stuff that you dunk on with all of these like loony troonies that you find from TikTok that you're sitting there making fun of, they're saying the same thing that you are. They're just a little more mentally ill, or obviously mentally ill doing it, which you're still clearly mentally ill. It's like, but you're just part of like the cool kid trans because you guys are marketable. Maybe you look better to some people.
You're a little bit more charming. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Blair
they
White
just
is
they-
Blair
sorry.
White is a nasty man. He is very misogynistic, but at least he doesn't talk to children. Buck talks to. I feel like for me, even where I am, and I've done as much as I can to erase like my phase of like being in the sex trade off the internet. I still don't go out of my way to talk to children. I know that children have access to the internet and sometimes they're going to follow me and all these different things, but I do not go out of my way to talk to children. I don't, because I know that they can find things of me out there that are not for them to see. I would never do that. A groomer does that. Buck is still engaging in pornography and she talks to children like it's normal. And it's not.
Disgusting.
I don't know if you guys have seen. So when she was like trying to like shit on me, I like when she was like,
Oh my
yeah,
god, that was hilarious.
so funny. I was like,
It
oh,
was such projection.
yeah, I was like, okay, Buck, but like it was so funny because she was like, oh yeah, and I have a lot going on. You know, you can sit here and talk all the shit you want on my, you know, adult work, but you know what? I own a home. Do you? I was like, yeah. But like, but it was like all this stuff, and it's like, okay, but let's think about what you had to sell to get those things, right? Okay, so if you go, she has an. I want to. I can't blast this stuff because it's so pornographic, but she has a little company called, I think it's like Buck's Angels, where she has features these like porn stars that she's kind of like, I guess their manager or something, and she's helping to like manage them and push them, and a lot of them it's like these twinkie gay men, and then she has these trans identified females, and they're all very 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 young. She's pimping them out. She's like the grand madam. That's how she's making money. She's selling these young women who are gender confused, who need money. She's selling them them having sex and making money off of it. And she's no friend to women. Let's be so clear on that.
Yeah,
I
she's
saw a comment earlier from a sister. I understand, and I try not to, like, I don't want women to be disposable or anything like I don't want us to treat women like they are disposable. But anyone who recruits young girls into the sex trade, I find that unforgivable. And I'm
Absolutely.
not going to make Brittany's life about this, but I have a video coming out next week about the things that went on. I'm doing a huge expose in the fall about what goes on in the sex trade and the truth about the sex trade. And I really would encourage everyone to watch it, because the things that go on behind the scenes, there's blackmail, there's kidnapping. I watched someone get held at gunpoint and said if they didn't finish the scene that they weren't leaving the building alive. There's so much violence. Why would you want to? I would never, just like I said last night, I would never, if someone was struggling with money, I'll say, how much you need, sis? And I will go make it, or I would take them with me. Come on, sis, let's go make some money. I would never tell them, get on OnlyFans, join the sex trade, become a prostitute, work at a strip club. I wouldn't tell my worst enemy that. Why would you tell these young girls that? I would never tell them that. And she's recruiting them actively?
Yeah.
And you want to
go
talk
off.
to children?
It's unacceptable.
I had
And the
no
fact
clue about
that
any of this.
she's
That
saying
is
that
wild.
people are bullying her for calling her out on it. No, like this has to end. And the whole thing is like she and all the other grifters, they make all their money off of pointing fingers at the other trans and saying they're bad. But that was part of what piqued me, was realizing, going from Too Cute to True Scum to Turf, I guess, was realizing that the two camps or whatever, the like queer theory ones and the true trans, are just as ridiculous as each other, because they both defy reality. They both say that men can be women and women can be men, and that humans can be something other than male or female. Like, they're equally as ridiculous, and they point at each other and they say, look at me, I'm the good trans, they're the bad trans, and you should believe me. But it's none of it's real. None of it's real.
My whole experience has been being surrounded by gender ideologues that are always getting accused of some form of sexual harassment. The girl I started AWF with, accused of sexual assault harassment multiple times. The one that was doing decriminalization for prostitution, accused of raping 2 people, one accused of kidnapping, one accused of grooming a child, and now we have Buck, who does this disgusting crap and is pimping people out and trying to talk to kids. Like, your intentions are not, I don't care what anyone says. If you're doing that and you're trying to talk to children about anything, I don't give a fuck what it is. I don't give a fuck if it's about going to college or what college you want to go to. You don't have good intentions. You don't have good intentions. You know damn well when you're involved with something like that, you're not supposed to have any proximity to children. That's why I always go off on these quote unquote OnlyFans accounts that like to comment on my social media posts. Your shit should be locked up because you know that this app is 13 plus. You know that they're going to be like someone who's a kid is going to see that. Someone who's a kid is going to click your profile and see all the shit they're not supposed to see. That shit, I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. That shit is supposed to be behind lock and key.
Yep. And I remember when I was 15, 16 on Instagram, my female friends and I would always see these OnlyFans stars seeming like it's some easy job. You can just do it on the side. It doesn't matter. You have full control. And we would be counting down the days until we turned 18 so that we could join OnlyFans and do that. I am so glad we all grew out of that, but that is terrifying. We were children, we were babies, seeing those on Instagram, just posting about it casually because we were exposed to it, because we were exposed to that ideology that it's just casual, you have full control, they're going to control you anyway, so you might as well expose yourself. That mindset is so harmful to young girls. I can't believe it's mainstream.
Speaking of which, and I think
Porn exposure.
No, go ahead, Rana. Go ahead. And then I want to just say.
Oh, I just wanted to say, like, on the topic of like porn exposure, like I think that it plays a huge role in a lot of this stuff because women and girls see porn and they see that's the role that like you're to play, and they either try to go along with it or they reject it and they tune out basically a lot of the time.
The sex
and I feel
trade
like
and gender
being
ideology are connected.
100%.
So I think this is a good way to segue. What are your guys' thoughts on lesbian representation in media, in pornography, in, you know, I know Sasha, you were recently talking about this, whether it's like music videos or whatever the case may be, and how do you think that's impacted sort of this genderism thing, and everyone can be a lesbian, and sort of how lesbians are treated and regarded and sort of fetishized in society? What are your thoughts on lesbian representation in media in general?
Ooh,
in general, it's horrible. I'm sorry. I'm gonna take this one because my experience in the sex trade. Some of y'all, you know, trigger warning because there's going to be sensitive topics discussed. In the general media, it's horrible, but porn, it's worse. Porn is far worse than anything you could ever imagine. And let me tell you something. Drug tests in the sex trade, period. I've been on set where there are people who are passed out or in the process of overdosing that they just move the body to a different room, right? I've seen girls passed out in the bathtub and they shut the curtains so that it doesn't fuck with the flow of the shoots in progress, right? The only issue I ever had with doing drugs on set, because I am high in every single film I'm in, and you can see it because I'm always laid back, my eyes closed or rolled back. And you see me, like, I'm barely ever active except for one film with this girl because I thought she was very attractive and I like that particular type of woman. However, the only issue I've ever had is the director telling me to go and take my drugs in the bathroom. So his issue wasn't that I was doing drugs, it was that other people could see me doing drugs. And you cannot consent while you're under the influence. And I was in no condition, but I had to because I needed the money because I wanted to buy more drugs. Sometimes I didn't even get paid in money. I would do shoots and then be paid in ketamine or be paid in cocaine or be paid in heroin. And they encourage this. Your agents encourage drug use. Directors encourage drug use. If you express any slight discomfort, they will say, well, hey, take this Xanax, or hey, take this Percocet, or take this or take that. You'll feel better.
Drug use is the easiest way to keep you coming back, because especially if they're going to pay you in drugs, they're going to get you all hooked up. And like you said, it's also a great way to keep you numb for the whole experience so they can just do what they want.
Exactly. And the only people who are really making money in the sex trade are the people who are saying yes to anything. And even they're not making enough for what they're saying yes to. It's not the 80s anymore. You're not getting $1,500 or $2,500 or $5,000 per shoot. You're making $600 unless you're doing backdoor, or I hate saying this, anal, and then you might get $1,000. So these women who they advertise in these certain scenes as being lesbians or studs, they're often paired up in shoots after that, being essentially raped. The films are about like forcing them to like do certain activities with men, and then all of a sudden they open up to it. The whole thing is either you're a predatory lesbian who has to convince women to participate in their own sexuality and you're violating them and you're teaching them how to like women, or you're a lesbian who has to be convinced to participate in your own sexuality by being used by men. And the image is always terrible. And we can see this reflected in regular media where lesbians are always you're always aggressive and you're always pursuing women, or you're a sex pest, or you have no depth of personality and your whole personality is just that you're a lesbian, or that you're just a side character, or you die in the first couple episodes of the show or the first couple minutes in the film. We don't have any legitimate representation, and I think that's why it's so easy for people to dehumanize us and to look at us as just vessels for who are available to provide service and comfort to them, because they don't see us as like people. They don't see us as a demographic. They don't see that we have a culture or any real connection with other people as human beings, because a lesbian is just a woman that likes to have sex with other women. You don't see the real romantic relationships. You don't see them interact, like those tender moments that two lesbians share between each other. And everything is just sex, 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 sex. That's why people see lesbians the way they do. And that's why they don't mind that these predatory men are trying to get some, because, hey, everybody's just trying to get some. I'm sorry, I went off on a tangent, y'all.
No,
This
well
shit pissed
said.
me off.
No, that was great. Like, I really appreciated that because I feel like I definitely agree. I feel like we're either really over sexualized, like, and made into like objects for the male gaze, or we're like severely under sexualized and like infantilized, and it's like ooh ew, like, oh, I'm so shy, like, oh, do you want to like hold hands and like kiss, but like it's like these like desexualized like queer girls who are like, oh, queer love, and like, oh, I want to hold hands with the girl and I'm so shy to talk to girls, and like he I'm like such a lesbian. And like, I feel like that's so damaging because it makes you feel like you're predatory for like having sexual desires towards other women. And like, so I feel like the options we get, I feel like we're pigeonholed into a lot of different stereotypes. And when women feel like they don't fit one of those, that's, you know, driving a lot of them to transition. And I also think that like a lot of any like lesbian representation that I have liked in like cartoons and stuff is always accompanied by like gender propaganda, like, and non-binary characters also. So it really kind of ruins it.
And that part is true, because it's like there's this push to non-men to detach lesbianism from womanhood, and it's inherent. Like, lesbianism and womanhood are intertwined. You cannot separate the two, and they are trying their best to do that because they want lesbians to be seen as this other undefinable thing, so that it's accessible to everybody. And
Yeah, and
that's what
then
they're trying to do.
and then they attach it to femininity.
Yep.
And I see a lot of trans-identifying males say that lesbianism is so inclusive. No, the fuck it's not. No sexuality is supposed to be inclusive. It is by definition exclusive. That's how it works.
And then you're closed-minded because you don't want to fuck everyone and everything.
The identity pansexual exists, and that's honestly about the time when I started to not identify with the community, when pansexual started being phased in. But that identity exists. If you want to be inclusive to everyone, just identify as that.
It is so bad, dude. My first identity was probably pansexual, and I had such like internalized lesbophobia and was in such the queer community. I was like, you know what, I am like a pan demisexual, so like I will date anybody as long as I have like a strong romantic connection to them, and I think that's the best thing to be. And because like it felt more ethical than like everything else, and like I spent years and years cycling through different identities, gender, sexuality, because I just didn't want to accept that I was a lesbian.
And that's ridiculous that it felt like you had to do that.
And
that's
and then I was like a
conversion,
homo flexible asexual, or like things like those are all actual things that like I actually identified with when I was like probably 14, 15. Because like I said, I spent too much time on the internet, too much time with my queer friend group, who were all like trans identified or gay or this or that in some way or the other. And it really was like bad social contagion. And like there was just so much like over sexualization and like kink and pornography. Like I had so many who were like friends who were into like like DDLG and like acting like, you know, like the baby and the like daddy or whatever, but they would like that was, and like they would wear like collars and like all sorts of like gross shit. And like, or like they would show me like pornography that involved like urination and just like really gross stuff. Like I had so many of these like trans friends who would like at sleepovers when I was like 14, 15, they would like laugh and like show me pornography and like things like that. And like that was just like so normalized in that community. Those people, they're just so overly sexualized and sexually degenerated and just like soaked in like, I don't know, like yaoi anime pornography and like all of the worst of the worst. And they like identify with it and they want to act it out.
I think we were in the same communities when we were younger. And the fact that I was 13 when I was exposed to this stuff is ridiculous. At the time, I never even saw it as strange. I was just like, okay, this is what
this is what
LGBT
friends
means.
do. This is what, this is what we do. It's just like, we're just being queer, whatever. And if you don't like it, like, fuck off. Like, you're
You're a
homophobic.
bigot.
You're a bigot.
You're
a bigot, and like you just
close-minded and you're
exactly.
this and you're that. And it's sick. It's sick a lot. And I think I want
boundaries were demonized. Boundaries were like that was demonized, and that was like bigoted. You know what I mean? Like they,
you know,
that's the whole thing that the trans movement does.
And another thing that I'm noticing now, I've always, when I was younger, I was always a very chronically online child, so that's why I know so much about this stuff. But I noticed that there is always this fringe group of insane people in the LGBT community that everyone would just ignore. Like, oh, the ones who say maps, that's crazy. Oh, the ones who say neo-pronouns, that's crazy. We don't talk to those people. But ever since 2020, when all the normal people who touch grass were forced online and were exposed to these insane ideas, they started to see these as takes that should be validated in any way, shape, or form. And I think this is a big reason why we've gotten so insane. It's because so many people have gone online and seen the insane emotional debates about these fringe topics that have got, for some reason, reached the public eye now.
And like, you notice how none of them ever call out the people in their camp who are doing this behavior. Like, I know this one Julie Gauze was a trans-identified male who was consistently grooming children via gaming. Like, he would get on games on his PlayStation. He would get on games on his PlayStation and then talk to kids and then show them like weird furry art or whatever. And he's been exposed for that several times, and no one ever said anything. Like, no one from that community came and said, "Hey, that's fucked up," or say, "Hey, like, don't fuck with this person right here. They're doing really messed up shit."
Yeah,
they see it
didn't happen.
They see it happening and then they ignore it.
No, it didn't happen.
And it gets pushed out to the
fringe, it didn't happen.
To the fringes, and they know true Scotsman them, and they say, "Oh, well, that's he's an outlier. Or he's not really this or that." And I see it a lot
every time.
And I've always been like real into like anime and manga, and those communities. There's a lot of grooming, a lot of like sexual degeneracy, normalization of pornography, and like people who spend too much time online. They project onto fictional characters, and then they like want to become them. And like I've seen a lot of people like tune out because of that. And like I used to be a cosplayer, and like there's a lot of grooming, a lot of over sexualization in that community too. It's really bad.
It's horrible.
A lot of trans identifying people there too.
And they don't want to correct it.
And those were all like my friends as a teenager. So I was just constantly steeped in gender ideology. So even when I was trying to escape, like I was constantly trying to rationalize it to myself, trying to find some way that I could accept it, that like transgenderism could make sense. That way I could keep all my friends. But I basically had to distance myself from them because it's just not healthy to be around. And I hate living a lie.
I think this has been the problem with the force teaming in general, and the just like lumping and whites. I think it's important. I do think like keeping the LGBT together for political reasons and to get things done and to sort of, leverage your numbers to accomplish stuff like what Sasha was saying. But it's like when you start adding all these other numbers, it's like, it's really just about like, grooming and like pushing past boundaries. Whereas the LGBT is literally about enforcing boundaries, saying that we have, a sexuality that is exclusive and it is this and it's not that. And whereas the TQ is about just like ripping all those boundaries back down. Kelly, do you have anything to add about, sort of like lesbian representation? Or I guess my next question that I was going to move into was, are you guys out as gender critical to your friends? And have you found that it's been difficult? Have you had any pushback from, other lesbian friends, other LGB friends, kind of within your communities? And so, Kelly, I haven't seen you speak in a little bit. Do you have anything that you want to add about either of those?
Yeah, sorry, I'm like so new to the gender critical. I don't know most of the people you're mentioning, or I'm still Googling like very common terms that you all know. So I don't mind learning about it.
I love it. It's good. It's nice to have like a range of people here, a range of people who have been gender critical for a long time, people who are, recently peaking and still kind of working through it. Like, I guess, and in that sense, like, Kelly, what are some of the gender critical issues that you're really finding most compelling, as a more newly peaked?
Well, just like the men like taking over the women's sports. Like I watch the one guy, I think Awaken with JP or something. He's so funny. Like he does all those spoofs and satires, but just showing how obvious it is with the men in women's swimming, and like just that to me was just crazy. Like how far. And I feel like by the time I already figured out that this is crazy, I think laws are already in place. I don't even know, but now I feel like I have to backtrack and think, oh my God, how can we get these laws reversed to where, because I came along so late, I would have liked to prevent it. But it was the men and women's sports, just the men. I think the biggest shock was that like men still having their penis, and like women winning Woman of the Year, and like just like now with the latest International Women's Day, like it's so insane to me, like that this is not just common sense. Like this is men taking over, trying to extinguish us. Like it just became too much for me to ignore. And like I don't really get into conversations about it with my liberal friends, because most of them are, live and let live, blah, blah, blah. But it's this mainly the women. I'm just baffled why they are so okay with this, and not only okay with it, bending over backwards to like change things to make this the norm. And I have a lot of my younger cousins, and they have little children who haven't even started school yet, and I thought, I don't want this to be the norm for them, where there's just like when I was married, my stepdaughter was in gymnastics from like age 6 like up to like 16. And I thought, God, if it was like boys and girls, like the whole thing, like I just kind of want to stop it. I don't want that to be the norm. I do want, boys to have their stuff, girls to have their stuff. And I think that's the way it needs to be. So yeah, I woke up late to this, but there's just some things you can't ignore.
Yeah. And I think a big reason why women bend over backwards to defend these men is because we're socialized to do that. We're socialized to prioritize the male. No matter how he identifies, we're socialized to prioritize the male. And it's not only that, but also the fact that they are pretending, as Sasha said, they're feigning genocide. They're acting like they're being genocided. So any rational person, any empathetic person is going to say, well, if this person needs to be protected, I'm going to do anything I can to protect this person. And so you have all these completely manipulated women going out of their way to defend men from a genocide that is not happening. And the entire time, these men are laughing at them.
Yes. And the whole term transphobe, like that just pissed me off. Like the first time, like just saying you don't agree, like you can say it as respectfully and nicely as you want, and immediately transphobe. And then they lost me completely there, because I know I'm not a transphobe. It's not hatred. It's not, it's not even really a dislike. It's just, they don't belong there. Like there's certain places men don't belong. It's a fact. And so, that was...
Nobody goes and tells monks that they have to let women into their temples. No one tells no one tells Muslims that they need to have women in XYZ places. They don't tell them that they need to include women in their prayers. They don't tell fraternities or whatever that they need to include women. But for some reason, women always have to make the compromise to allow males to exploit them and provide them provide these men with comfort. We're not doing that anymore.
Yeah.
We're not doing it.
No. And honestly, my biggest like thing, I just keep going back to, imagine if somebody wanted to pretend to be a war veteran, like how respected and protected that is. Like, you know,
Stolen valor is actually illegal. Stolen valor is illegal.
like
right?
that's insane. Like, and I feel like
you can go to jail for it. You can go
Yeah.
to jail for pretending to be a veteran, pretending to have been served in the military at all, or pretending that you've been, that you're.
Oh, she gone?
We lost Sasha.
Oh,
But I mean, Piggy.
Yeah, like-
she's back.
Am I back?
yeah, you're back.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry, I accidentally knocked my boob, knocked my fucking camera out of the thing. But no, yeah, that's just illegal. And so if we think about the legal ramifications of them saying anybody could be a woman, that means women don't exist. And that means all of the laws that haven't been codified to protect women's female human rights, they're gone. We already see how they've attacked Roe v. Wade. We already see how they want to come for divorce. We already see how they want to come for all of these laws and protections that women have fought for decades.
Exactly, including
For
single-sex
hundreds of years.
bathrooms.
Yes, yeah. I mean, even if it wasn't illegal, like to pretend to be a war veteran, like the fact that people will fight and say how important that is, but then like, oh, being a woman, anybody can.
Even
No big
Rachel
deal.
Dolezal, the way people reacted to her compared to the way they react to transgenderism, it just shows that they take racism seriously, but not misogyny.
Yeah.
Same reason why people react to blackface and drag differently. It's because they think racism is a real problem. They don't think misogyny is a real problem.
Yeah.
And we see this reflected in the feminist movement, which has become a political dumping ground for all the world's issues, while we are still neglecting all of the issues that women and girls are facing. We're ignoring femicide. We're ignoring the issues with the sex trade. We're ignoring brothel villages and bride kidnappings and ghost weddings and all of these different issues that are exclusive to the female experience, period huts, all of these things that nobody talks about because gender ideology has swallowed up the feminist movement.
Yeah. Yes.
Women can't have anything for themselves.
No.
We need to stop pretending like the word exclusive is a bad word, or like the word inclusive is a good word. They're just neutral words. They don't mean anything
Even that,
positive or negative.
When they say like you're dehumanizing them by saying that a trans woman, air quotes, is a man, it's not dehumanizing to say that you're an adult human male, which you are. And it's not like an insult, it's not a value judgment. And me saying that you're a man or a woman isn't a bad thing unless you inherently associate those things with being bad. And then that's on you.
Yeah, like literally only humans are men. So what are you talking about? It's like there's nothing dehumanizing about saying that you're a human man.
I find it funny that they're like, oh, you're reducing womanhood to like parts and being a baby maker. I never said that. I said being a woman is an adult human female. You think adult human females are baby makers, and you think it's a reduction to have a vagina because you think of us as inferior, and you think woman is a political identity, and that females are something other than male. You think of male as a default, and you're opting into this because it's a fetish for you.
They'll literally say, they're like, don't call me a woman, but call me a uterus haver or a menstruator or like a front hole haver. It's like,
as if, non-human females have periods also. So what's really dehumanizing?
I can't with the bonus whole thing. That sounds so perverted to me. That like.
It also goes back to the grooming and making safeguarding harder because we talk about how when you're trying to prevent childhood sexual abuse, you want to use anatomical terms. So that way, when the little kid says, like, he touches my cookie, like, you don't know what that means. But if like, she says, like, he touches my vulva, then you know that, like, the kid's being abused. So it's just another form of trying to, like, make it so people don't understand so that it's easier to groom, so that the little girl in the locker room who sees a man with his penis out is told, oh, no, some men have penises, it's okay, rather than gut out, call for help.
And like, so for you guys who have like, I don't know how much you guys are like friends with other lesbians in real life or like have community, but like, have any of you have found that you've had to like sort of either hold your tongue or lose relationships? Because one thing I've noticed even too when I was on like the women for women dating apps and stuff, it's like a lot of women who are actually women are identifying as non-binary or identifying as a bunch of random crap, and then it's just kind of like it just seems like it's so split. It's like lesbians are either hardcore turfs or they're like
Hardcore
totally
gender
in this kind
ideologue.
of gender stuff. Yeah. Are you
Um,
finding that it's really
I think
infiltrating and has it impacted your friendships and relationships?
it really hasn't impacted my friendships. It has impacted some social circle. I mean, not social, but activist circles. I'm sorry, prostate entities is funny. That's funny. But I cut people off real quick. I don't give a fuck because my values matter more to me. It matters more to me to have people around me who share my values than to have to hold my tongue or do this, that, and the other thing. Because I don't feel if I have to hold my tongue around you, I don't feel safe around you, so you don't need to be around me, period. And for me, my only friends are really lesbians, femmes, and turfs. Like I don't have friends outside of that because I can't deal with people who don't think of me as a person. I can't deal with people who think of me as simply a political identity because if we take that argument to its logical conclusion, then you're saying lesbian is a political identity and it's not. I'm not a lesbian because I hate men. I'm not a lesbian because I'm disgusted by scroll creatures. I'm a lesbian because I'm exclusively attracted to women. I'm attracted to things that a man could never provide to me.
I mean, I have a friend. I don't. Sorry, Brittany. And sorry I disappeared, guys. But I have a friend who's actually my neighbor. That I had reconnected with, a lesbian friend. And from what we had remembered, we got along real well. And at the time, she was. And we had just reconnected, but she was in the search for a house to buy a house, and the house next to me became up for sale. So I told her like, hello, if you want to be my neighbor, here it is. So she ended up buying the house, and we're fairly close, but this is a conversation that I've kind of avoided with her because her dad is a trans identifying male, and I just don't know like to what point. She uses preferred pronouns. Like this has been going on since she's 16, 15. Actually, shortly after she came out as a lesbian, her dad came out as a trans woman and is originally had divorced the mom, but is now back with the mom. So this dad is a transbian, apparently. So I mean, I've told her like, dude, as more time goes by, the more gender critical I am becoming, and I'm not sure. And she just said like, okay. She's like, you can talk to me about it, but I just don't want to cross a line, mostly because she's my neighbor now. So I just don't want it to be weird.
I mean, I
Yeah.
think as long as you can have an open discussion with someone, it doesn't matter if you end up agreeing or not. I think as long as you guys can talk to each other and listen to each other, then you don't have to worry about, I don't know, anything being awkward forever. But if she can't accept an honest conversation, then that's not someone who you want to be in a relationship, at any relationship with, I guess.
So, do lesbians get support from gay men? I think even we do, but it's rare because like for some reason, I mean like we'll get like some gay men that are like, yeah, like not no to the TQ plus, but whenever like lesbians are very outspoken, the first people that will descend on the comments will be like, oh well, you're being like trans exclusionary, you're being transphobic. I don't know why. I suspect these are really just bi heads in disguise, men who are like actually bisexual or men who are straight, but they love to fuck trans identified females. So they're like, nah, let us get this fetish because it's easier for them to get sex from a trans identified female who feels insecure than it is for them to have to go out there and work and court a woman and then like prove to her that he's worthy of being intimate with. And like these people are on testosterone, so they're all fucking horny, right? I used to deal a lot, and like I'm thankfully I have never taken tren yet. I've never taken testosterone.
Uh,
I've never taken like, performance enhancers, like, because I used to be really into like bodybuilding and all this kind of shit like that. And so like women are often using PEDs, some of which include testosterone, and it fucks with your sex drive. And so when you're insecure and you're looking to be affirmed, guess who's there to save the day? Straight men pretending to be gay that fuck exclusively trans-identified females.
I mean, it's a lot like Phil Ille, who purposely, his whole thing is actually targeting trans-identifying females because, I mean, for a lot of reasons, because he knows that they're easy to manipulate. You know, a lot of these women are either traumatized or mentally ill, and they become drug addicted, even if it's just addicted to the testosterone. Testosterone is a powerful drug. I mean, it's powerful. That is a drug. Okay? It's a powerful drug. You get addicted to the whole process. You get addicted to the, even, I mean, like, you listen to a lot of like ex-heroin addicts who say that it's not even just the heroin itself. They get addicted to the like going and getting it and the anticipation and then the little, the burn of the needle, and just that whole thing. And it just, and I see it. There was this one trans identifying female who was on TikTok and YouTube. I forget what her name is, but she would always love to show off when it was time to do her testosterone injections. And you could just almost, it's like, I could almost just imagine that addiction area of her brain just lighting up like a Christmas tree. Cause it's like, yes, it's all coming. And it's like, so I know that like Phil Ille, men like Phil Ille get attracted to these trans-identified females because there's ways to control them. It's like you can hold their drugs over their head, or it's these men who get turned on by the idea of being pegged by women and doing these like sexual role reversals. He talks about that a lot. And just, it's like men love the feeling of being not in control. It's the same way of like men who love to be, dominated by this, like, like a dominatrix doing this BDSM stuff. So he can feel like he's not in control, but the reality is he's in control the entire time. He's always in control the entire time. It's just like role playing, being helpless, role playing, being vulnerable, just to see what it might feel like, but they're never actually vulnerable. There is no true vulnerability.
Yep. Period.
Yeah. And they get into
Duck, I think that transitioning would drop drastically if we just abolished gender. I will keep saying this. That is the entire issue. Sex is the only real thing. You're either born male or you're born female. That's it.
That's it, and that's all. And I think that's the number one and way that we're going to bring back, these communities that really are actually like crucial and essential, and they're not people running away from themselves. So I guess, to start to wrap up, because we are entering into the 2-hour mark, and I think that this was a really awesome conversation, and I'm really excited because I feel like this was so successful, which means we'll definitely be able to keep having this back. But I guess we'll just kind of do like a quick open topic. I'll just go around, to each of you, and like any last comments that you want to make or final things, and then plug yourself. Say how we get in touch with you. So we'll just do clockwise again. So Indi, why don't you go first? Tell us if you want to, if you have stuff that you want to plug, whether it's your Twitter or if you have a project coming up or if you have a community that you're trying to put together. And then also I'll make sure to have all those links in the bio. But any of sort of last reflections on anything that we talked about here. And feel free to take your time.
I unfortunately don't have anything to plug yet, but I am going to start very soon because I think this is such an important issue more people need to be talking about. I want to quickly respond to Scooter asking what gender is. At this point in time, gender is just personality. For a long time, it has just been a series of sexist stereotypes, and that's what I used to define it. But right now, in the current state of trans activism, it is just your personality. People assume that the fact that they enjoy dressing a certain way, walking a certain way, talking a certain way, that means that it's their gender. It's not. It's just your personality. But yeah, that's all I have to say.
Sweet. Kelly?
No, nothing to plug. I just I love that these channels exist, and I'm not totally going crazy. Like, this doesn't make sense, and it's obvious, and I just really like these channels to get more informed. That's it.
Thank you. Julie?
Yeah, nothing really to plug. Only say I'm in Ohio. If anybody's in Ohio and I don't know wants to get together, I'm definitely up for some activism. So yeah, you can get a hold of me at on Instagram at Freedom Loving Super Butch. And yeah, if you're in Ohio, get a hold of me, and we'll definitely do some surfing this summer.
Awesome. And yeah, like I said, and all these links and stuff, I'll make sure to put it up on, the pinned comment and in the general details. Sasha?
You know I got a lot to plug. All right, so this weekend, or all this, first of all, I want to start from the beginning. All this week, we will be doing fundraising for Madison Calloway, who has escaped the sex trade, escaped an abusive relationship, and just had a major surgery. Ren is doing 2 weeks, so we got to get it together for her. This weekend, I will be doing I will start my journey with a tell-all exposing the porn industry and the sex trade in general. So I'm kicking that off this weekend. I will also be releasing a video essay about the 6B4T separatist movement. The following month, I will begin organizing the Women Against Pornography March. I will be releasing a podcast the month after that. This coming fall will be a full tell-all expose documentary about the abusers in the sex trade who are being allowed to, basically like the Harvey Weinsteins, the P. Diddy's, all of these like violent entities that have been enabled this entire time to traffic children and rape women and hold them at gunpoint and kidnap and blackmail and do all of these awful, terrible things. And I also have a feminist group here based in Florida with my friend V, V. It's called Female First Florida. And we are in the beginning stages of developing the IWRI. I just rented an office, and we are looking for people who are willing to become influencers to help us reach our goal and do resource distribution, employment assistance, and eviction prevention.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, anybody in Florida, definitely, team up. Female First Florida has already done a lot of really interesting boots on the ground work. And yeah, do more events in Florida so we can all go to Florida because we like going to Florida.
And stay at my place.
Yeah. So please go support Female First Florida so we can have more Florida events. So I have a reason to go to Miami. Because I'm there. I'm there. Awesome, Sasha. Thank you. Rana?
Okay, my Instagram handle is radfemrana, so you can reach out to me there, and especially if you're in the New York City area, I know a lot of other TERFs, and we would love to hang out or, get some boots on the ground work done. We go out stickering sometimes. It's a lot of fun. So, thanks for having me on, Britt. It's been amazing. And yeah.
I love this. I was so glad. This was totally great because I was like, I didn't know if like everybody was going to be like awkward and it was going to be like, but you guys had like such a great flow of the conversation and it's so cool. It's just fun. I think it's really fun for everybody to see some of the names that they see a lot, like in the comments and during the live streams, actually being able to come up and speak. And I'm so fucking tired of hearing my own voice. So I like hearing you guys. And I love getting that kind of feedback. So hopefully, yeah, this was great. So we'll definitely keep it going. Ladies, thank you so much. And again, and as always, the reason why I always like to start off with the gender critical lesbians is because you guys really are the godmothers of this movement. So much of what we're doing now would not be possible if it were not for the radical feminist lesbians who paved the way for us. So it's like, I just feel like I'm constantly, in your debt and grateful for this strong legacy that we stand on the shoulders of. I mean, these radical feminist giants who called this stuff so long ago and made these predictions, and it's all coming true. And so that sort of foresight, I think, was so critical. So you guys, thank you so much. This is wonderful. Make sure, if you guys can, just email me a list of any links that you want or social media or whatever else, and we'll put it in the put it in the description, and everybody please get in touch with these ladies. And yeah, let's work together, guys. No one's going to build these communities. It's on us. You know, they're breaking all this stuff down. We've got to build it back up. So
Period.
All right.
period.
See ya.
Thank you. See you guys.
Thank you. Bye.